session titled Reimagining Greener Bengaluru. Restoring urban landscapes requires a multifaceted approach. Does it start with waste management or reviving native species? What is the role of a citizen? How can governing bodies pitch in? Renowned author Ms. Roopa Pai and author and science journalist Ms. Deepa Padmanaban will be in conversation with writer, naturalist and sustainability entrepreneur Ms. Ramya Coushik, sharing their ideas for a renewed garden city. And yes, can we please have a huge round of applause as I invite our host, Ms. Ramya Coushik, onto the stage. Please join me on the stage, ma'am. Ms. Ramya Coushik is a software marketer by profession, nature writer, and natural farmer. She is the founder of Goobe, Zero Waste Living. I hope I'm pronouncing it right.
Green Goobe, Zero Waste Living.
Okay, that's how you say it. Thank you. Green Goobe, yes. And yes, together, she also runs her family business, Navilu Kade. Please pardon me if I'm pronouncing it wrong. And yes, oh yes, we do have Kannada speakers with us here, so you will be knowing how to get the right terms. She writes about this patch of land, her own farm, and its wild creatures in a monthly column called Rooting for Nature in the Deccan Herald. Absolutely an honor to have you with us today here in this panel. And speakers for this panel, Ms. Roopa Pai. She is a children's author and journalist with over 20 published books, which include India's first fantasy adventure series for children, Tauronauts, and the national bestseller, The Gita for Children, which also won the 2016 Crossword Award for Children's Writing. Some of her most notable works include Becoming Bangalore, Stories That Shaped a Hometown, and Cobbon Park, The Green Heart of Bangalore. And yes, the final speaker in this panel, Ms. Deepa Padmanaban is an independent journalist and author, writing on science, environment, biodiversity, wildlife conservation, public health and climate change. She has been published in The Guardian, Howard Public Health Magazine, Discover Magazine, Scientific American, National Geographic, Mongabe, and many more to her name. She was selected as a South Asia Speaks Fellow and Kiplinger Climate Fellow USA in 2022. She was awarded a special mention in the Environmental Impact category by the One World Media Awards UK in 2023. It's indeed a privilege to have three scholars right here with us joining in this panel. And yes, with a thunderous applause, I would now request the host to kindly take over.
Hello, am I audible? Is the mic on? Okay. So it is an honor. Thank you for having us on the panel. And it's an honor to be moderating two stellar Bangaloreans on a topic close to all of our hearts. So let me dive straight into it. We don't have much time. So mothers are compulsive advice givers. I'm one. My mother's one. I'm sure all the mothers are. But it was the same back in time. So in the 16th century, there was a mother who gave an advice to her son. Keregalam kattu, marangalam nedu. Build lakes and plant trees. It was none other than Kempegowda's mother, which laid the blueprint for what was to become Bengaluru, a land of 1,000 lakes, a land of greenery, and a land of plenty. So this blueprint is what was followed by successive kings, administrators, the British, and which is why we have our garden city. But somewhere I think we are losing the plot. The 1,000 lakes have dwindled to around 90 to 100 now. The sparrows that were synonymous with Bangalore are nowhere to be seen. And this is what we're going to be discussing on the panel today. And I have two highly accomplished authors and Bangaloreans here to help us through the discussion. So let me dive straight into it and ask Roopa, because she's written a lot about Bengaluru in her book, Becoming Bengaluru, a phenomenal book that is originally columns in Hindustan Times. about your favorite memory of trees or any natural memory in Bangalore.
Thank you, Ramya, and thank you, Green Lit Fest, for having me here. I mean, it's just beautiful to be sitting in the Century Club, which is in the middle of the historic Cubbon Park, to be talking about Bangalore's greenery. My favorite childhood memory about nature, I can't even recall it because I think as Bangaloreans, we used to take nature for granted. It was always around us. It was not something we looked forward to or we studied or anything. It was just there. But I remember Gulganji Bija, collecting those red, I don't even know. Does anyone know what that tree is called? Gulganji? Huh? Coral tree maybe, coral tree, yeah. And it used to have that black mache on it, a little black spot, and we used to collect those. Oh, it's such a joy to do that. Yeah. And then, of course, coming to Cubbon Park, going to Bal Bhavan and riding on those concrete elephant, sitting on that, and the Putani Express. There was just, my grandmother's house where I mostly grew up had a large garden. So memories of drawing water from the well. Of course, I wasn't expected to draw and could not, but my aunt would draw and I would pretend to be pouring it, hold it with her and pour it into all the pathis where all these periwinkles and all the rest of these plants used to grow. My mom has a very green thumb, so even in our upstairs first floor house in Kumara Park, Sheshadripuram, then and now continues to be lush and full of plants and trees. Another abiding memory is taking cuttings from people. Whoever we visited, we would come back with a few cuttings. It was return gift. The typical Bangalore return gift, you went to eat somewhere and they sent you away with a cutting. Yeah.
Now, Deepa.
Yeah. Hi, good evening, everyone. So, I have a confession to make. I've not been raised in Bangalore, though I was born here, but I grew up in Bombay. But I have come here almost every summer vacation because, my grandparents lived here. So I do have childhood memories of Bangalore, and I think the most prominent one is, my grandparents lived in the Vayali Kavals, Malleshwaram area, and it was the smell of the sampige flower. Because that was something, coming from Bombay, all the pollution and, the dust, and here it was like clean air and, the fragrance of the sampige flower was something I would really, really look forward to. And of course, Cubbon Park and, the Putani Express. So those were the two really childhood memories. Later in, I think, 89, 90, my parents moved to Bangalore. And we lived in, actually, it was boondocks back then. There was like absolutely no development. Our colony was built on, it was not a very great thing to do, which I realized later. It was actually built on a tank. So we had a lot of frogs in and around our house. And the moment we had to step out of the house, we had to literally look and see because there would be, dozens of them just, jumping around, hopping around, and we had to be careful not to step on them. So that was another memory, and now they have like vanished. I mean, there's not a single frog in our area. It's like completely concrete jungle. So those are the two memories of childhood or, maybe as a young adult, which I really miss because even though the sampige tree is there, I feel that now you don't really get the fragrance that, we used to back then. So, yeah.
Thank you. That's such wonderful, beautiful memories from both of your sides. I'm going to reserve my memory because we have to get on to other things. So, talking about trees, before I ask the next question or we go on to the next topic, I'd like to take a moment to remember Salumarada Timmakka, who departed or left us on the 14th of November this month and left behind a rich inheritance for all of us in the form of 386 banyan trees. I think we are blessed. She is the mother of not just those trees, but a mother to us all in Karnataka. So the next question or the next topic of discussion that we are going to have is what are some of the iconic trees that have come to define Bangalore? Roopa.
So many of them, but just going by my book, Becoming Bangalore, it's a collection of columns that have been published over the last 5 years, fortnightly columns about Bangalore in the Hindustan Times. So there was always this idea that we should compile them into a book. And people had been telling me, we'd get your columns, but we want it all in a book. And so fine, I found a publisher for it. put the columns together. Out of the 100 or so that I had written by then, we chose 75 because that we are limited by the number of pages, because otherwise the cost of the book would go up too much. Very hard to choose 75 because each of those columns was very dear to me, but we did. And then came the real challenge, how to divide those columns into some kind of sections, because you can't just have a continuous thing with no thematic separation at all. And so, and these columns had been written over 5 years, every fortnight, depending on what was going on in Bangalore at that time, or what idea came to me, I used to write them without any thought as to any kind of continuity or anything. So how do you classify? So one thing was chronology, stuff that happened in the 16th century maybe, and then 17th, 18th, 19th, like that. But that wasn't working. There were too many of one kind and too little of another kind, so that wasn't working. So then we said, okay, shall we do it geographically, where these things happened in Bangalore, and then we could accompany it with a map, so people will read that section and they'll have the map and they can go and visit all the places that we have talked about. But it went from one region to another. And also, how do you divide Bangalore into geographical areas? What geography? North Bangalore, South. So we said, okay, let's do election constituencies, Lok Sabha constituencies. but even that was not entirely accurate. So we said, okay, can't do that. Then typical usual thing is by themes like institutions, people, places, things like that. But again, in each column, we went across institutions, across people, personalities, we went back and forth in time. So that wasn't working either. And finally, I'll tell you why this long-winded answer to that simple question. Finally, we decided that the only way, it was like a brain wave, we're really losing my mind how to divide it. And then I said, why don't we divide it by season? We'll find one date in each column that is somewhat important to that column, and then divide it into seasons so that we have a year in Bangalore. And what kind of season? We can't have autumn and winter, because in Bangalore we have 4 seasons every day. So we can't do it that way. So how do we do it? Finally went by flowering season. And
awesome.
So those were the 4 seasons that we went. But the first season was, I think December to February is now, November to February. And if you just look out of any window, driving anywhere in Bangalore, you'll see them. That pink riot of Tabebuya. I think it wasn't originally what defined Bangalore as a tree, but now
it's come to be.
Now it's come to define. And as soon as the first Tabebuya tree goes into bloom, it's announced on social media, everybody is at Carbon Park in Ringwood Circle to see all the trees in bloom. The next one was, I think, I'm not sure of the seasonal thing. There was African tulip, which has just finished. African tulip or Uchchekai, those red, beautiful blooms. And then Champaka, Sampige, where we just had a session in Sampige village. And then the 4th one was Gulmohar, of course. So Gulmohar defines summer in Bangalore. African tulip defines the monsoon and post. Tabebuya defines winter, and then we have Champaka. So, all these. Sampaka is more like, I think, Gauri Habba time.
Gauri Habba.
Yeah, so these 4, yeah.
So beautiful. By the way, Deepa's book, Invisible Creatures, also, Invisible Housemate, I'm so sorry. So that also, I think, describes a lot of these things, including the trees. So on to Deepa.
Yeah, so my book doesn't really talk about trees, but since we're talking about trees, I mean, Bougainvillea is not exactly a tree, but I think for me, that was something that defined Bangalore, because like I said, I used to come here every summer holidays, and we used to see this line of, bougainvilleas with different colors on certain roads. So that was, I think, one of my dear memories of Bangalore. And African tulip, I particularly remember that tree because about 13, 14 years ago, I had a very severe case of dengue. And I was admitted in the hospital. I was in the ICU. So in the ICU, I mean, you can imagine it was such a depressing environment. Everybody around me was like, unconscious or in coma. And I was the only one, I was the only awake patient. I was the only patient who was awake. And I was like, how do I, just get out of this thing? And there was this African tulip tree that could be seen in the window, and it was in full bloom. So that was the only color, and gave me some form of hope when I was there in that hospital room. So for me, I think the African tulip is very, very dear. So yeah, I think coming to tree, and of course Roopa has mentioned all the other trees, so I think Yeah.
Nice. I think in addition to, besides all of the flowering trees, one thing that always kind of defines Bangalore for me is the honge. Honge, during spring, the honge mara, the pongamiya. Anyway, lovely. Thank you for your wonderful answers. Besides, yeah, Bangalore's green, Bangalore's beautiful. And we talked about us losing the plot somewhere as Bangaloreans. For several years, I think the greenery of Bangalore and the lakes of Bangalore and the habitat of Bangalore has been constantly coming under threat from different directions, infrastructure projects, roads, the metro. Of course, as the city grows, all of it is essential. But there have been, citizen movements that have actually managed to safeguard a lot of the iconic green spaces in Bangalore. So I think it would be lovely to hear from you both on some of the citizen movements that stand out for you by the citizens of Bangalore to protect our green spaces.
Yeah, there are so many. But for me, what stands out and particularly relevant right now, because we are sitting in Cubbon Park, is the saving of Cubbon Park. How many movements have happened. This is, Bangalore, Cubbon Park is not only it's not only the heart of Bangalore, like in the sense everybody loves it, but it's actually located in the absolute heart of Bangalore and at the intersection of what used to be two very different cities, Bengaluru and Bangalore. So there was Bangalore, the British side of Bangalore, which was actually an independent republic kind of status. It was separate by itself. And then there was a Maharaja's Bengaluru around it. And Cubbon Park was absolutely in the center. I don't know how many of you know, but you had to pay a toll to come from that side of town to this side. Yeah, so but when, at the time of independence, when the two sides were decided that, they would both join and become one city. Otherwise, people on that side completely mistrusted people on this side. And this side had the churches and the English language bookstores and the dance halls and the fancy restaurants, and that side had all the dosidly places, the temples, the coffee powder, Mallige. So it was very different. I grew up on that side in Malleshwaram, and our border was this, amorphous thing called cantonment. We are going to cantonment. Means MG Road, Lakeview, Brigade Road, max, then come back home. Who knows what lies beyond. It was that kind of suspicion, and people who lived in Coxtown, Frasertown, they would have never stepped into Malleshwaram and Rajajnagar in their lives. So when the two came together, so then what happened was Cubbon Park became the space where both of them could feel at home. That was the heart where people from both sides could feel comfortable, and was one kind of leveling ground where everyone could interact with each other without suspicion. And now, that's why Cubbon Park is so important. Of course, we need many more Cubbon Parks. This Cubbon Park is not enough. And so many people now, when I talk to about Cubbon Park being, oh my God, my Cubbon Park, and they're like, what is Cubbon Park? We never even visited. Because immigrants who have come in now live so far away, for them Cubbon Park is not a thing. And if you don't come to Cubbon Park often, you don't understand the spirit of Bangalore. You don't understand what Bangalore means, unfortunately. But I remember one particular protest to save several acres of Cubbon Park it was going to be denotified, because in 1973, all of this, including where the Vidhan Saudha stands, all of it, 300 acres was under the Parks Preservation Act. And you could not build anything on these areas. Now, I think Mr. J.H. Patil, when he was the Chief Minister, he wanted to build, the legislators' homes. So he said, always a very fraught thing. And he said, if we can't build, that's not. So they wanted to denotify that section of the park. They said, let's take out Vidhan Saudha and all the rest of it from Cubbon Park so that we can build there. And for that time, and I remember it very clearly because I don't remember it at all, in the sense that I wasn't living in Bangalore at the time, and I feel so bad that I couldn't participate in those protests, because it went on for 6 weeks. Every single day, Bangaloreans would come and protest non-violently in front of the Queen Victoria statue. One day it would be they would take turns, it was relay, and there would be one day it would be dog people. All of them would bring their pets and protest. Another day it would be Infosys employees. Another day it would be kids from the blind school. Another day it would be Kannada film stars, celebrities. They would all come. So without any differentiation, people from Bangalore came and protested. The saddest part was they lost. So that part was denotified. However, that protest to me is a watershed moment in the history of Bangalore because it set the bar for if we want to keep Carbon Park, this is the only way to go, otherwise they will take it away from us. So now we preempt it. Even if you hear steel flyover, everybody is out there, steel flyover, Beda, because they know that this is going to happen. Yeah.
So, like I said, I've not really grown up in Bangalore, but it's not really a citizen movement, but I read about back in the late 1960s to 1970, there was a lot of tree felling, tree logging happening mainly in the forests, in the Western Ghats. And one environmentalist, his name is Yellappa Reddy, he was a forester. He campaigned and he spoke to Devraj Urs, who was the chief minister back then. He told him about the significance of trees and why we need to protect them. And then he came up with this Karnataka Tree Act, under which many species of trees were listed that should not be cut. Unfortunately, over the years, that act has been diluted and many species have been taken out. So, there is a lot of tree felling happening. But yeah, the one thing that I remember is, the steel flyover that was to be built and how there was this, human chain and people came out in hordes to support it and they were able to stop it. Unfortunately, after that, I think, there hasn't been much protest. I think there is a need for it. Recently, I heard that in IISc, there is, I think, 2 or 3 acres of trees are being cleared to build a forest and, nobody seems to be bothered about it. Also in North Bangalore, there is the Avalahalli forest, which is also, I think there is some construction happening there. So there also a lot of trees are being cut. I wish that people of Bangalore would come together to, protect these trees.
Yeah, I think there have been cases of victories as well. Can you hear me? I think I'm audible. Okay. One thing that stands out for me in terms of, I just wanted to mention this before we move on to the next topic, but one thing that stands out for me in terms of a victory, one is Carbon Park, the other one is Hesarghatta grasslands. So after a long battle, I think from the time in 1972 onwards, it's been, the threat of a film city has been looming on the Hesarghatta grasslands. And in October 2024, I think Mahesh Bhatt, Etri, Sheshadri, a lot of them, after prolonged battle, I think finally it was declared as the Greater Hesarghatta Grassland Reserve, and making it the second largest naturalist space after Bannerghatta National Park. So I think it's victories like that should kind of set the tone for us. But with the signs of these anthropogenic pressures not abating at all, what do we do? How do we preserve the natural habitats in Bengaluru? I know we are not experts on this panel. There are flora, fauna specific to Bangalore. Deepa has written about some of them in her books, Invisible Housemates. And there are so many. There's a Bangalore burrowing frog, and there is the lilac silverline, I think, which is in the grasslands, Hesarghatta, butterfly unique to that space. So how do we preserve habitats for this, for such wonderful beings and for ourselves going forward?
So I'm a children's writer, mainly. So I always believe that the future lies with children. Our time is over, but we still have the opportunity to teach children. And what should we teach them? I feel this doom and gloom has to stop. These scenarios of everything is ending. So, we actually have among young people today a condition called climate anxiety, where they feel what is the point of doing anything or studying or being hopeful about anything when everything's going to end anyway, and they feel this hopelessness and a feeling of resentment against us, the previous generation, for having ruined it all for them and not being responsible. And that is quite pointless. That's futile. That kind of, if you think that scaring people is going to get them to work towards creating a better environment, it doesn't work, at least in my opinion. I've always known, because I always work with children, I know that children, and from my own experience as a child, children function better when they're given hope. When you give them joy, then they will work with happiness. So I think our responsibility as adults today is to infuse joy and eagerness and curiosity about nature in the kids, rather than telling them it's all going to go, it's all going to go, we are doing this, stop using that water. It's always no, 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 instead of yes, 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 let's go on that field trip, yes, let's look at that frog, yes, let's spend a whole 2 hours just observing something, let us get bored together. You know, because the parents are also always busy doing something, and there is no substitute for a parent's joy in something for it to communicate itself to the child. I know that when my mom used to read a lot, all the time she used to have Kannada novels on her bedside table, and we all knew that if we wanted something which she normally wouldn't give from her, it's best to ask her when she has her nose in a novel. Because she'll want to get rid of us and she'll say, yeah, yeah. What that did for me, apart from getting me whatever I wanted to get, was that it told me, it indicated to me somewhere subconsciously that reading was a great, wonderful, pleasurable thing to do. And therefore I began to read, I think, subconsciously. So if we enjoy nature, if we find joy in nature, if we take time out in nature, even with the kids or without the kids, if we just speak joyously about nature, that will communicate itself to them. And you can only protect something if you know it. So we have to introduce children to nature. And you only can love something if you know it. So if you love it, you will protect it automatically. And if you know it, you will love it. So I think that's what we should be doing.
That's a wonderful answer. I think I'll...
Yeah, I agree completely, Roopa. I think, you know, a lot of us Indians, especially our generation and older, we didn't take a lot of pride in our natural heritage. Flora and fauna is part of our natural heritage, and as much as we take pride in our cultural heritage, we need to take pride in our natural heritage. And I think that was lacking all these years, but now I see that in the younger generation, they are curious about nature, they are curious about, you know, trees and the small organisms that live around us, creatures. And I think books like yours and, you know, even my book, I've written about, you know, cockroaches and lizards and squirrels and crows, and I see that children are interested in that. So books like these create awareness about, you know, the flora and fauna around us. And also as citizens, I think we need to be a little bit more conscious about the way we live, because when we talk about a green city, it's not just protecting the trees and the animals, right? It's also like the whole, you know, waste management and, you know, sustainable lifestyle. So because waste management is something I've written about it in my book, it does affect the ecology of a place. You know, when you have the, you know, waste getting into the lakes, then, you know, the frogs are affected. Or if, you know, like rats and, you know, cockroaches, they become more abundant and, you know, they can spread diseases. Today we talk about, you know, One Health. That is the planet's health is connected to our health. So we keep our environment clean, we keep our planet clean and healthy, then, you know, we also will be healthy. So this awareness, I think, has to slowly be built in. There are now, I think, environment education is part of, you know, some school syllabus. I mean, I really don't know how good it is, but I think, like you said, reading is a great way. If we can encourage kids to read and, you know, get aware about, you know, get some awareness about these, about the flora and fauna around us, I think that would be a great start.
Thank you, Deepa. I think that's a very, very pertinent point, especially when you mentioned the garbage that the city is generating. In fact, the face of, or rather the kind of creatures we're seeing in Bangalore are different now. You know, at one point there were rat snakes. Now Russell's vipers are taking their place because there are so many rodents. So all of these, it's all interlinked. I think it's great to kind of be able to discuss all of this with both of you, especially your memory about your mother reading. I think it was a gift to all of us who are enjoying your books, as well as Deepa's. I think we are done with our discussion, and we are happy to have questions from the audience for the authors. And for me, if you have any.
It's just a comment. Just looking at the two of you and knowing both of you and following your books, big fan, Roopa. and big friend Deepa and big fan of your book. It'll be lovely if the two of you collaborate because you're coming from a completely different perspective. I know you've been a writer in the science field, and Roopa is, I read the Gita, your book. Forget the kids. So what a beautiful book it would be if you both collaborate and get something together for all of us, for the kids and the grown-ups. And thank you. Just a small
That would
thought.
be a treat.
Hi. At some point you mentioned that we need more spaces like Cubbon Park. I was just wondering, like, how could we as citizens go about like initiating or even just helping with initiatives like that?
How could you help?
Yeah.
I don't know, petition, I suppose. Petition the government, identify places, get support, that kind of thing. But there are plans. There are plans to develop certain parks outside. But if there's a groundswell of public support also for it, or a willingness, if you signal your willingness to the government that we will strengthen you, we will strengthen your arms, we'll come work by your side. If you need any citizen participation to garner support, tell us. Instead of always treating the government as antagonist, I think we will get somewhere, because they also have a huge job on their hands. It's not that they're not trying. There are enough bureaucrats who do want to make it happen. It'll be good if citizens also lend a hand.
I have an add-on point to that. Specifically, when you want to kind of join movements, I think the best way is to start getting to know the places. There are bird watchers field. There's a Bangalore Bird Watchers Field Club. There's the Butterfly Club. All of them kind of meet every weekend, and they're in all of these spaces that we talk about. There's the Cubbon Walks that happens in Cubbon Park now, which is so lovely. And there's the Bird Watchers Field Club that meets at Lalbagh on the second Sunday in the morning. So rather than waiting for something to happen and then go join the movement, if you are part of the city's natural habitats, you're going, you're watching them, you're getting to know them, then you're naturally there as their guardian, because you're watching for any change that happens there, you're watching for activities, you're identifying species that are there that have dwindled now, so you can alert the citizens. So an organic way of doing it would be to kind of be in these spaces with the nature clubs on a regular basis. Do you want to add something to it?
So just to add to that point, of course, there are a lot of clubs these days, but also you can be part of your own, community or RWA. For example, in our colony, we, hardly anybody knew each other. We did not really have a strong community, but some few years back, we formed a waste management team, and I was one of the volunteers there, and now slowly that team has expanded to include all kinds of issues. And we also keep now okay, what trees are there in our neighborhood, or what somebody will share pictures of flowers that are blooming, and that's how there's a pride now built of our colony. And we and build a community there to protect what you have in your residential area.
Do we have any more questions? Great. Thank you so much. Thank you, Deepa and Roopa. Please, read their books. They're wonderful. Deepa's book, Invisible Housemates, is a treasure trove of information on cockroaches, lizards, stuff that we just look at as nuisances and pests. And Roopa's is a treasure trove of information on Bangalore, natural history, political history, whatnot. I'm just gobsmacked at what both of them have written. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you, audience. And thank you, Green Literature Fest, for this.
Once again, thank you so much on behalf of the entire team GLF. And yes, I take this opportunity to invite Mr. Pankaj Seksari onto the stage to present a token of appreciation on behalf of the Green Literature Festival team to our speakers and the host. And that is the last session here. The 5th edition of Green Literature Festival is being concluded right here with the main sessions in the main hall. Once again, I extend my heartfelt gratitude to our host and the speakers. So can we please have a photograph? For taking their valuable time and joining us for an insightful conversation.